Imagine building a city with your own hands, only to burn every house to the ground. They didn't just live in these cities, they destroyed them, again and again, on purpose. What kind of people would torch their entire world, and call it renewal? These weren't enemies setting the fires, it was the people themselves, thousands, burning everything they had. Long before the pyramids, a culture rose, and chose to end every city in flames. Long before the pyramids rose or Mesopotamian kings carved their names in stone, a different world thrived in the heart of old Europe. Across what is now Ukraine, Moldova and Romania stretched vast settlements, not clusters of huts, but sprawling proto-cities home to thousands. Archaeologists call this culture Cucutini Tripelia, and its scale is astonishing for the Stone Age. Carefully arranged in concentric circles, their cities were not random. They were designed, orderly, alive with communal purpose, and yet, there's a mystery written into their ruins. Every few decades, these people did something unthinkable. They burned it all. Not a house here and there, not a neighborhood, the entire city. Every single home, torched to the ground. Then, from the ashes, they built again. The remains of these fiery cycles form what scholars call the burned house horizon, a layer of ash and charred clay stretching across hundreds of sites. Excavation after excavation reveals the same story. Whole neighborhoods collapsed in place. Their walls melted red, their floors hardened by intense flames. This wasn't accidental fire. It wasn't enemy attack. It was deliberate. But why? To understand, we first need to picture the world inside those homes. Each was crafted from timber frames packed with clay, smooth walls rising to stories high. Upstairs rooms bustled with daily life, while below, ovens glowed and food was stored. For the winter, painted pottery adorned shelves, its spirals and swirls hypnotic in design. Altars and figurines suggest that ritual wasn't separate from daily life. It was woven into it. Multiply this by thousands, and you have not villages, but communities, rivaling the size of early Mesopotamian towns. And yet, there were no palaces, no walls, no kings. These were cities without rulers, held together by shared traditions. Traditions like fire. When archaeologists cut into the soil, they don't just find one burned layer. They find dozens, stacked one upon another, the record of centuries of repeated destruction. The scale is staggering. To burn a city of thousands of houses requires immense fuel, immense coordination. The flames must have been orchestrated, consuming everything in a roaring inferno. One explanation is ritual. Fire as purification. Just as many cultures offered sacrifices by flame, perhaps the Cucutini Tripelia offered their very homes. A house wasn't just wood and clay. It was a living space filled with spirit. To end its cycle, they set it ablaze, releasing that spirit skyward in smoke. In this view, fire was a sacred renewal, not an ending. Others point to practicality. Burning turned fragile clay into hardened rubble, creating stronger foundations for rebuilding. Ash, rich in minerals, may have nourished fields, yet practical reasons alone cannot explain the totality. Why destroy every house? Why erase entire cities again and again? Maybe the fire was for the people themselves. Imagine hundreds of families gathering as their settlement burned. The night sky glows red, the heat sears the air, the roar of collapse thunders through the earth. Such a spectacle would bind a community in shared awe, teaching each generation that destruction was not loss but transformation. Their children grew up with the memory of flame. Their elders saw cities reborn from ash. Fire was their teacher, their tradition, their destiny. And yet, all traditions end. By 2750 BCE, the cycle of burning stopped. The great settlements were abandoned. Why? Perhaps the land could no longer sustain them. Perhaps new peoples pressed in from the steppe. Perhaps the fire ritual lost its power. Whatever the reason, old Europe's cities vanished, leaving only ash beneath fields. What makes them unique is not simply that they burned, but that they did so willingly. Century after century, other cultures used fire to native peoples. In the Americas, burned forests to renew them. Romans torched sacred buildings in ritual. Vedic India worshipped through flame. But no other culture systematically burned entire cities. This was not war. It was worldview. For the Cucutini, fire was both creator and destroyer. It hardened clay into permanence. It transformed homes into offerings. It erased but also renewed, like the phoenix rising from its own ashes. Their cities lived by dying. Some argue these fires were not voluntary, but the evidence resists. The repetition, the scale, the precision, too deliberate, too consistent. If this was war, it was war waged by the people against themselves. Again and again, in the ruins, archaeologists still uncover painted vessels, figurines of goddesses, traces of communal feasts. These fragments whisper of a people who saw the world not in straight lines of progress, but in circles of birth, death, and rebirth, and in those ashes lies their legacy. We think of cities as permanent monuments to endurance, but the burned house horizon teaches something else. Cities are cycles. Civilizations rise, they burn, and from the ruins something new emerges. For old Europe, the fire was not an end. It was the way forward.